Garlich, good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Thanks for sitting down with me.
More than welcome.
First of all, congratulations on another very successful annual meeting. I believe participation has again exceeded previous records. To what would you attribute the success of the ESA Annual Meeting?
I would hope that there are various reasons for that. One, obviously, we are in Italy, we are in Rome, we are in a country that is very vibrant in its seed sector, so there are many seed activities here in Italy, so there is a strong history of the seed sector. That is for sure one reason why we had more participants also from this country. But we see also an increasing participation from other parts of the world, so from the United States, from Canada in particular. So it really also documents the international and growing international trade of seed, but also the cooperation between companies from all different parts of the world in a common effort to actually speed up variety development processes and so forth. So I think it is a combination of these things. And I think it also shows that the sector, despite the fact that there is, like in any industry, there is a certain consolidation, that at the same time there is a very vibrant competition as well as collaboration. And I think that explains the increasing numbers.
That's great. If looking forward, what else could we expect to see the developments in the ESA Annual Meeting?
I think what we would hope to further develop is both our exhibition area, which has grown considerably over the years, with more and more exhibitors that work around the seed sector in manufacturing, cleaning, machineries, seed treatment, seed-related technologies, that we make this even more visible, and maybe not only visible to us, to the seed sector itself, but that we can also showcase what this industry is capable of, maybe to a wider public. So maybe at some point we will think about having maybe a public part of a day where we invite people to really have a look at what we're doing. That could also maybe help a little bit to demystify this sector, which is still in the wider public relatively unknown, of course.
A major development in the past year has, of course, the UK voting to leave the European Union, the so-called Brexit. How would you say this Brexit would influence the European seed sector?
It is for sure something that is very high on our agenda in ESA, as well as, of course, on the agenda of our member organizations in the UK. We have two seed associations in the UK that are member of ESA. And together with them, we will try to address this as best as possible. We have a very clear guidance from the ESA board where we think these negotiations need to go. We would like to make sure that in the end, the successful common market for seed, and with that the basic common legislation that we have both for variety registration and seed marketing, as well as then of course for the protection of intellectual property rights, remains intact as far as that is possible. How this can be achieved is of course still very much under discussion. There is no blueprint for this kind of a negotiation between the European Union as a bloc on the one hand and a country actually not wanting in but wanting out. That is something that is new also to the Commission, to Member States, to the Parliament. But we hope that in the end a common sense will prevail, and that indeed people will see that where success is so evident as it has been in the common market for seed, which actually is much older than the European Union itself. The Union only started in the 1990s basically. Before that already we had the European Community and we had the European Community of Coal and Steel, but the decisive element, common element of European politics since the 1960s has been agriculture. And the seed marketing legislation stems back from that time. So we already have 50 years of experience with a common market for seed, much longer than the rest of many economic sectors. And it is a true success story. So we hope that we can convince both sides, the European Union as well as the UK, that we need to maintain this as far as possible.
That seems like a very important topic.
Yes.
Looking ahead, what would you say are the current three priorities for ESA and the
Yeah.
European seed sector?
I think one we just discussed. One definitely is Brexit, also because it's got so many different angles, so many different details to look at, way beyond the ones that I've just mentioned. So we also would look at legislation in relation to movement of treated seed between the two new entities, and so forth. So it's really a very, very wide range that we need to look at. Basically, at everything that governs the seed sector will have to be looked at in the discussions on Brexit. But then, of course, we have the ongoing debate on how to regulate plant breeding innovation.
Yeah.
We have a very promising field of research and applied sciences that promise to further speed up plant breeding innovation, and we would of course hope that these technologies, these techniques, new methods can be deployed in Europe as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
They're starting to be deployed in other parts of the world, and we hope that Europe will not miss the boat on these techniques, but will rather be at the forefront of this development, which we have been very often in the past, because Europe is a very strong hold of plant breeding science. So that definitely is very high on our agenda. And I think another big subject for us is, and that was visible I think during the 3 days here in Rome, is the further development of the international treaty for plant genetic resources of the FAO. We have made a very considerable financial donation to the Access and Benefit Sharing Fund last year. We continue to collaborate with FAO and to provide our input to the ongoing negotiations between the contracting parties, so the member states de facto of the FAO, how this treaty can be improved, how in particular its financial situation can be improved, and we are well aware that there is a role for the private sector. At the same time, we also need to make sure that governments understand that the treaty will only be successful if they take their responsibility, which is to provide material genetic resources to the system and to also financially support it as part of the wider societal responsibility for this effort. And I think it will be important that we keep the momentum, keep the drive of the discussion, so that hopefully by the end of next year, at the next governing body meeting, we will come to some further conclusions on how to improve this treaty.
Okay, very necessary it seems.
Yeah.
Garlich, let's assume you have a magic wand, and
I wish.
and you could change one thing in the European seed sector. What would that one thing be?
Well, probably I had a couple of ideas, but no, to be honest, I think that the main point that we need to, and I think we're starting to see that development already, but my feeling is the main point is that we need to definitely further improve our communication. If we would spend, and I mean our communication to the interested public, there are more and more people talking about us, but generally not really knowing much about us. And if we would increase our efforts to explain what we're doing, why we are doing it, how we are doing it, so to indeed demystify a little bit of how this sector is looked at, I think then many of the image issues that this sector, as many others, are facing, would probably disappear. If we would put the same level of effort in this part of the communication that most of our companies put actually in the communication to their customers, to their farmers and vegetable growers around the world, I think we could probably achieve quite a bit. So I'm not saying the one is more important than the other, but I think we probably have to explain more and better how our sector operates, what we need, but also what we bring to society, to make sure that people understand that this is a sector that deserves support, and that the business model behind this sector is something that should not be criticized, but rather be supported by respective regulatory frameworks, by respective support for research, for further development. So that is, I think, the area that I would look at most.
Great. We know that ESA is very good at setting priorities, and each section meeting establishes its priorities. And where would you say in the coming year, where would your energy be focused?
Mm-hmm. I think you are right. We're trying to implement the different elements of our ESA 2020 strategic review, which we finished last year and started to implement as of October 2015. And we have presented progress reports on most of those policy areas that we have identified, as well as on the approach of how we actually want to achieve what we have set out in these priorities. And I think one element that is very at the top of our agenda, and where I see a strong focus then for the coming 12 months, is the collaboration between the different levels, if I may say so, of the seed sector organizations. We have structures obviously on the European level with the European Seed Association, but then we have structures on the national level in the different member states. We have, if I may say so, sister organizations in other parts of the world, the South American Cooperation, the Cooperation of the Americas, the African Seed Trade Association, and so forth. And we have an international level with the International Seed Federation. I think we have a lot of both structure as well as expertise that is out there, and that we probably want to look at how we can deploy that better, how we can further improve our collaboration, also making use of the latest in information technologies. Sharing, I think, is the key word here. How do we better share what we have available, and with that also amplify our individual efforts into something that maybe can leverage more than we could do on our own. So I think this collaborative element, which is already strong, it's almost in the genes of this sector, that can be further improved, both by structural as well as simple managerial efforts. But the basic point behind it, from my personal point of view, is indeed creating a common team spirit, if I may say. So I have said that on various occasions. Today, de facto, we do no longer have national or regional or even European seed. Seed is a global industry, is moving all around the world, and is with that also something where we need to think about how can we mirror what the industry is actually doing in its day-to-day business. Also in the way that we cooperate in the professional sector organization. So that's what I think would be one of the top priorities, I think, for the coming 12 months.
Excellent. Thank you, Garlich.